Welcome back to another episode of Love Saranghae with us, Peter and Andrea. Today, we're diving into a topic that has generated a lot of questions from my community over the past few days. Ingredient rating apps like Yuka and EWG. Many consumers are scanning products before they buy them, relying on these platforms to tell them what's safe, what's harmful, and what belongs in their skincare routine. But how accurate are these ratings? What information are they actually using? And perhaps more importantly, what might they be missing? In this episode, we're exploring what these platforms do really well, where they fall short, and how consumers can use them as tools without allowing them to become the sole authority on what goes onto their skin and into their bodies. If you've ever scanned a product and felt confused, conflicted, or surprised by the results, this conversation is for you. Let's get started.
This is going to be a pretty controversial one, I think.
Yes.
Yeah, because this has been building and brewing for a long time. And I do think that a lot, I've seen the evolution. I do think our customers and consumers in general are a lot more informed. Whether they're informed correctly or they're misinformed from a lot of this information in the nether sphere or in the web remains to be seen. But I think it's a good subject for us to talk about for sure. Because there's no right or wrong answer on this, right?
What's that?
There's no right or wrong answer on this. It's just, how do we approach this? And what is the right way of looking at apps like this? And how does it become a part of your information gathering and not the sole voice that you should be listening to? But anyway, let's get going.
Yeah. So I guess the first question would be like, what is Yuka? What is the Yuka app? And what is EWG?
Yeah. So EWG is environmental something group. EWG is I don't remember the acronym, but it's the very first one of the original rating for
Environmental Working Group.
Oh, there you go. Environmental Working Group. I thought it was like Environmental We Group or something. Either way, it's the original. One of the original. It's been around for about 15 years, and it rates compounds and ingredients that based upon their safety rating from 0 to 10. The great thing about, or at least the better thing about EWG is that they try to make an attempt at looking at the amount of data that's available in the marketplace or in scientific data available for testing. 2 is how it's used. So the use case scenario, whether it's ingestible, topical, and the concentration that it's used at, and where it's used in terms of like, what are the stabilizers that are used with it, et cetera, et cetera. So EWG tries to be a little bit more involved and complex in how they come up with a rating from 0 to 10. And 0 is, extremely good. 10 is like, you need to be careful. Doesn't necessarily mean that you can't use it, but you need to kind of be careful and have a look-see. Yuka is the newest app where it basically tells you...
Yuka.
Go ahead.
Yuka is a popular mobile app that you may be familiar with. It scans barcodes for food and cosmetic products. And they rate them based on, I'm going to say quote-unquote health impact. The evaluation system is from 0 to 100, and it's color-coded scale. So excellent would be green, and poor would be red. And then they suggest other alternatives, but we'll get into that more later. But that just is in a nutshell what the two are.
Yeah.
So they've become influential, I would say, because both have become really powerful, influential consumer tools that people use to make decisions about where they want to spend their money. And they want transparency, and they clearly don't feel that they're getting that from the brands that they've come to know and use. They've lost trust in bigger corporations based on for different reasons. There's been lawsuits, there's been hidden ingredients that have been discovered, etc. And then on the other side of it, people are just becoming more informed. They want to know what they're putting on their skin, what they're putting in their bodies. They want to know about what they're feeding their children, whether or not it is actually safe. despite what the packaging may be telling you. So the cool thing about these apps is that they offer a quick or instant opportunity to figure out whether or not a product is considered safe. So the problem with that all is that typically skincare especially is not that simple.
It's very, if you want, so Yuka, EWG less so, but Yuka treats every single question as a black and white question, which is basically, is it safe or not? But that's not the true story, right? Before we go to that, why don't we look at the talking points, like the how these platforms actually come to their conclusion. So I'll start with the EWG. So EWG is a little bit more complex, like I mentioned previously. So it reviews ingredient safety profiles, or MSDS, material safety data sheets. It scours the internet and actually goes after clinical data, safety data, and a lot of the research that's out on the net. It considers available toxicology data as well, whatever is available. It focuses on hazard identification, provides ingredient-specific breakdowns, and allows the consumer to go a little deeper into the science. So they come up with an answer that they take a look at all of this, and they give you a suggestion, okay? It's not a hard and fast yes or no, because they understand it's not a hard and fast yes or no answer. It's like, look, you should be careful of this if you're using it in this manner and at this dosage level or this concentration, because dosage makes the poison, right? Dosage makes the poison in an application. Zinc oxide on your skin is great. Zinc oxide swallowed is not great, right? So they understand this nuance, and that's what EWG was built for. Yuka's different, and maybe my wife can explain how Yuka comes to their score.
So Yuka uses an algorithm to generate a score. So it looks at ingredients and assigns rating. It does not provide any context, and it doesn't really look at, like EWG focuses on ingredient concentration and dosage and how it's being administered. It's a more full body picture. Yuka doesn't give you that context, and it doesn't take that context into consideration. It really is designed to be quick and simple, but in doing so, it is missing really key information.
Yeah, I completely agree. Definitely.
So the other thing to keep in mind when you see a hazard, it does not equal risk. So let's look at sunlight, for example. Sunlight can be hazardous, but it doesn't mean that it can be a risk if it's received properly. Water can be hazardous if you have too much or too little. Vitamin A can be hazardous at high doses. So it really does depend on the amount, the formulation, how it's put together in a product, the way it's being used, and the amount or the exposure level. So those things are really important to take in consideration when there's an ingredient in question. So something to just remember is that an ingredient alone doesn't tell the full story. You need to understand concentration, exposure, like all of that, in order to really get the full picture of whether or not it is hazardous.
And we're saying this because, I've been in the skincare industry now for almost 10 years, and, I have a mechanical engineering degree, but a minor in chemistry. So I understand the nuance of how this comes in. Chemistry and chemicals have been demonized for more than decades. People consider chemical to be bad. Chemistry is not bad. It's just simply a way of describing the organic compounds around us, right?
Water is a chemical.
Yeah, water is a chemical, right? So what I found is that, so one of the things that happened about 15 years ago was that a company was demonized for using something called parabens and also SLS. SLS is found in a lot of your soaps and detergents, and it basically is a surfactant that removes dirt and bacteria. And people said it was cancer-causing agent, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And what happened was, to get away from this, and the science was not solid. What I mean by that is, in the dosage levels that were in the products, it was considered safe, and it was safe as long as you don't ingest it or you don't overuse it. What ended up happening in the industry was that to get away from those parabens and SLSs that people said, I don't want to use this any more of this, companies started to reformulate and use something like ethyl-heptaglycerin or other stuff that would be a preservative, because you don't want bacteria growing in your personal care products. That was just as probably the same hazard profile, just not as known to be hazard, or didn't have that social backing of, hey,
That's right.
And what ended up happening was you just replace one with the other. And that's what's happening in the industry right now, is that when people get up in arms about a chemical that they don't really know much about, or how it's used, or what dosage or concentration, and they just simply have a blanket, it's bad, you end up driving away good chemicals that do good work, and you have the risk of bringing in stuff that are terrible for you long term, just as bad for you. You just go into the circle. And I think it's important that we all realize, or we ask the question is, what is the nuance? Like how is this being used? What is the concentration? What does it mean for me? Instead of just, SLS, terrible.
Yeah.
And I hear that all the time, right?
So like in a nutshell, a product can contain a flagged ingredient and still be extremely safe when properly formulated. The dose makes the poison, so keep that in mind.
Yeah, we here at Saranghae, we have a sunscreen. It's called Let's Get Physical UV Shear Defense SPF 50 sunscreen, and we chose a zinc oxide, 12% zinc oxide, because it is the safest option out there. The zinc oxide covers your skin; it doesn't get absorbed, and it is the gold standard for UVA, UVB, broad spectrum sun care. Having said that, we're not villainizing avobenzone or octinoxylate. These chemical sunscreens serve a purpose. They're sheer, and in over time, if you use them for 40, 50 years, perhaps you'll build a toxic profile by using them. But using them once will not kill you. And if you're gonna make a choice between not using sunscreen and using chemical sunscreen or these organic filters, go with the organic filters. We're not telling anybody not to use the sunscreen. We're telling you that you have a choice. Choose the one that's right for you. If you want the sheer, go use the chemical and risk that profile. If you really want the safest option, especially for sensitive skin, we offer one that meets that need. Different need, different sunscreen. Anyway, go on.
And also those other chemicals, again, context matters, dose matters, and formulation matters to be able to determine whether or not it is a toxic dose or not.
Exactly. Okay.
So where do these apps become problematic? Let's talk about the fear-based decision making.
When do these apps stop serving the purpose of informing us to make a decision? It's when we make decisions based on fear. Oh, you can't use this. Retinol, you can't use it at night. Well, I'm sorry. If you use retinol once or twice during the day, it's not going to kill you, right? It's not going to kill you. So
I think the other thing is with customers who with trust and looking for ways to find their own information, which is normal and good. They're given these tools, but they're not actually looking into whether or not these tools are actually true and trustworthy. So some of these apps are heavily sponsored by certain brands.
Yes.
And that's another important thing to note. I'm not going to name which app because I'm not in the business of exploiting people or brands. I don't do that. I don't want to do that here. But some apps are sponsored apps, and they push the products that they are being paid by. So the brands that they're being paid by are the products that they will push over others.
Yes.
So it's important to understand that these apps are not completely neutral in many cases. And so you want to take this information with a grain of salt. And remember, when that brand's partnership runs out, there'll be another one. And then they'll stop pushing that and they'll start pushing something else. And that's why you'll see things that may have been considered good or green become yellow, and then there's something else that becomes green and safe in the coming months.
Yeah.
So it's really important to keep that in mind.
Let's call it out as it is. Why do we think these apps spend all this time, effort, and energy to create this thing for public good, to inform?
Well, I thought so initially.
Yeah. I mean, I think I think you have a better, brighter view of the world than I do.
I do. 100% I do.
In my world, you just follow the money. You follow the motivation, fear and greed. Humans only do move for, fear and greed. And in this particular case, they're going to make money off it, and they'll make money in certain ways that we don't think that they do.
But I actually think it's slightly different. I think people don't initially come into something for that reason. I think initially they come into it for the good of something or to solve a problem that they have. But money does heighten either greed or whatever type of person you are. I think money just magnifies that.
Yeah.
So depending on how that goes for the people behind these brands. Anyway, what I think is important here is to talk about how customers should use these types of apps responsibly. So my suggestion would always be to use them as a starting point. So it's a good place to start to try to figure out what's right and what makes sense. Don't use it as a final authority. Like, oh, the Yuka app said that it's green, I'm going to buy it. Oh, the Yuka app says that it's, a moderate risk, I'm not going to buy it. What I would encourage you to do instead is try to dig deeper and figure out, why is it a moderate risk? What ingredient is flagging as a moderate risk? And then learn more about that ingredient, or reach out to a dermatologist or to someone that you trust in the skincare industry. You want to add to that, Peter?
Yeah, I think I'd rather have a consumer ask questions than blindly trust the marketing. And I also don't want people blindly trusting an app either. It's the same thing, just different bird, right? I think critical thinking still matters. I understand the time is of the essence, and I understand that. I mean, you're going to say, who has the time to X, Y, Z? But then what I will tell you is, don't, if you're not going to trust a brand, then why trust this app? Because they're a brand.
Yeah.
Just
that's
in
a different point. That's a good
just
way
a different industry. Right? Anyway.
So you are in the camp of don't trust either one.
No, I'm not saying that at all. There's a nuance. There's a nuance in everything, right? I'm in the camp of use all of these tools as a point of collecting information, right? It's one of the sources that you can collect information, along with talking to your dermatologist, because they're not always right either. Along with looking at other points of research, friends, family, they all matter. So it's just a one point of collecting information, not the point of truth or single source of truth, right? I don't think they lie. They're not saying, Yuka or EWG are not saying that, retinol is terrible for you and you should never use it, because, they're not lying to you. But what they're doing is they're looking at the information from their perspective that may not be congruent with what you're looking for. So, you use it as a part of a broader information collecting process. That's what I'm saying.
Okay. So it's like a guide. You're using it as a guide, but not the final say on what you should and should not purchase.
Yeah. So, I mean, look,
some questions to consider, to ask yourself when you're using this app, if an ingredient is flagged in a product that you love, for example. Ask yourself, is this actually dangerous at the level of concentration that it is? And you can reach out to brands and you can ask. If you're not sure, you can reach out to a dermatologist and find out, what does the research say about this ingredient and the concentrations, dosage of it? What are the regulatory bodies saying? And how does the product perform? So all of those things are things to question. We want you to ask questions. Education is how you learn and grow and evolve. And it's really important that you do that with these apps as well. So, anything else you want to add to that?
No, that's it. But you know what we should do? We should take a little bit of time right now to discuss a monumental change in an announcement that the FDA made. They just announced approval of a brand new sunscreen filter, an organic filter called bemotrinazole in the US. It took them 28 years to approve this. So for those of you who don't know, only 3 filters are approved for sale in the United States. It's zinc oxide, titanium dioxide, and avobenzone for skincare, for sun care or sun filters. So the 4th one now on the list is bemotrinazole. And bemotrinazole has been used in Europe for the last 2 decades and Korea for about, the decade as well. The interesting thing about bemotrinazole is that, one, it is UVA and UVB. So it absorbs 2 wavelengths of light at 500 nanometers and 750 nanometers or something to that level. The molecules are large, so you don't absorb into your bloodstream. Okay, that's 2. 3, it is highly photostable, which means that when sunlight hits it, it doesn't degrade like an avobenzone or octinoxylate.
Oh my God, the word.
Oh man, I can't. I speak too fast generally, and so trying to pronounce these words are twisting my tongues. Anyway,
I'm quite impressed of the memory of
octinoxylate or something like that.
To begin with.
Anyway, so bemotrinazole is it's like the almost, and it is very sheer. So it is one of the most. It is probably the best chemical organic filter out there that you can get. Now, having said that,
hold on.
Go ahead.
Here's a question about that. Prior to this new regulatory upgrade, a few months ago, that would have been a red app.
Yes, it would have been a red app. Yeah, most likely so.
So that's something to consider as well.
Yeah. So having said all of that, zinc oxide is still the superior filter. If you take away the fact that zinc oxide leaves a white cast, if that is not a concern to you at all, zinc oxide as a UV filter, UVA, UVB broad spectrum filter, is still the superior filter. Zinc oxide is also known to be highly anti-inflammatory, and it also is a skin conditioner. That's the reason why zinc oxide exists in baby creams. It calms diaper rash, right? And if you have sensitive skin, zinc oxide is still the best bet. It is still the most inert and non-reactive substance in a skincare. So there's still a very big market for just zinc oxide. Okay, so me as a mountain climber, I do not take chances with organic filters. No, you can tell me all the accolades in the world, but being sheer on my skin is not a criteria I look for when I climb. I don't care what I look like, right? So I'm just taking the best, the safest option, and the one that actually reflects light and not absorbs. Because if you absorb intense light over time, it'll degrade very quick, although it is photosensitive. So I do think that our sunscreen, we will take a look at reformulating down the road to a combination of zinc oxide and maybe bemotrinazole.
We'll see how things pan out with that new ingredient. Okay, we're going to do a quick bonus segment, myth or fact. 1 word answer.
Okay.
True or false?
You want me to do it? I will ask you the questions. Why don't you give me some? Okay, here we go. Bonus segment. Myth or fact? If Yuka gives a low score, the product is unsafe.
False.
False. Okay. Natural ingredients are always safer.
False.
Synthetic ingredients are always harmful.
False.
Preservatives are bad.
False.
Ingredient concentration matters.
True.
Formulation matters.
Very true.
Context matters.
Always true.
And your husband deserves new running shoes today.
False.
Okay, all right.
I'm paying attention.
Yeah, okay. All right.
All right, everyone. Thank you for joining us on another episode of Live Saranghae with us, Peter and Andrea. I hope is that today's conversation empowers you to become more informed skincare consumers, not 0 for 1. Remember, education is the most important point here. At the end of the day, apps, ratings, and ingredient databases can be useful tools, but they should never replace education, critical thinking, and a deeper understanding of how skincare actually works. The healthiest relationship with skincare isn't built on fear, it's built on knowledge. And remember, healthy skin isn't about perfection. It's about consistency, education, and caring for yourself from the inside out. Until next time, take care of yourself, take care of each other, and take care of your skin.
How do you come up with all that?
Bye.
Bye.